Welcome to the Self-Performance Strategies Podcast. Unlocking the secrets of self-performance so you can improve mentally, emotionally, and physically. The goal of this podcast is to help you create more freedom of time, money, and purpose. My name is Stephen, and I am your host. I believe there is always an easier way, and I am here to help you find it. Let's jump in to the SPS podcast. Hello, and welcome to episode 1 of the SPS podcast, the Self-Performance Strategies podcast. I'll let the intro music roll out here, produced by myself randomly. I made that track about 6 or 7 years ago, and I thought, hey, why don't I put a little bit of music at the front of this podcast? Not that I do too much of music production anymore, but I just thought it was a cool thing to do for my podcast. Well, what is the Self-Performance Strategies podcast all about? It's my goal, as I said in the intro, to help you find an easier way. And each week I will be breaking down a specific idea that's going to help you get to the next level, whether that's mentally, emotionally, or physically. Whether it's to do with your performance in your work life or your career, or your performance in different areas of your life. I feel when we're leveling up, we have to level up all areas of our lives. I just don't feel that. For me, I think that's an actual fact. If you just level up your career or your entrepreneurial life, you're going to miss out on leveling up your relationships, your emotions, and you're not going to feel balanced. So the goal ultimately with all these episodes and with this podcast is to give you the tips, tricks, strategies, frameworks, processes that work. This first episode, I'm going to talk about something that we all need. I'm going to talk about something that is really important if we want to show up and be the best versions of ourselves. We're talking about, in this episode, we're talking about improving your energy. How can we improve our energy to be at higher levels throughout our days? And to frame our conversation today and to frame this episode, I wanted to share a quote by Dr. Joe Dispenza. When you activate the heart by calling up elevated emotions, you are not only broadcasting that energy to every cell, you are also radiating those feelings out into space. I love this quote from Joe Dispenza because it basically says you can call up elevated emotions from within you, that you can change your state. And not only will that change your state, it will also help you change the state of those around you. It will help you radiate those emotions into the space around you. Now, the reason why I bring this up and what I want to talk about in this first episode of the Self-Performance Strategies podcast is I want to talk about how powerful regulating your energy is. Now, you would think for a self-performance podcast, the first episode might start with some productivity tip or some type of strategy to get more done in less time. And you're right, yeah, I could have done that. But when you get down to the first principle of how do you show up, how do you improve your self-performance, how do you get better as a person? Well, for me, when I was thinking about it, it came to this. It came to this idea that it is all about our energy. We can use all the strategies and all the models and all the tips and tricks we want, but if we don't have the right energy, if we can't regulate our emotions, and if we can't be a decent version of ourselves, all those strategies don't help us. That's why I want to discuss 5 reasons why developing your inner game is going to help you improve your energy, 10x your energy, help you show up in a better way, because inner development is key. Inner game development is key. Self-help and personal development advice is everywhere, but most of it focuses on the external or on the surface level. Like I was just talking about there, the tips, the tricks, the strategies, the techniques. Start this habit, use this system, eat this food, do it this way, do it that way. Every guru, everybody's got different ideas. But in my own personal experience and in my journey, the real growth happened when I looked inside and fixed my emotions and my energy. I can tell you that in my life, I fell down the trap of reading lots of productivity books. I fell down the trap of time boxing, of batching, of 80-20 principle, the Pomodoro technique, endless amounts of these strategies. But they didn't help fix my energy. They didn't help fix my emotion. Yes, they helped me get a bit of work done in a decent amount of time, but they don't fix the root cause of your self-performance issues. They don't get to the root cause of why am I not performing at high levels. Looking at your emotions and looking at how you're showing up with your energy and getting deep into how and why you're regulating that is going to help you show up more. Because if you can have higher states of energy, you can use all those techniques I mentioned in a more effective and efficient way, because you will have the energy to actually hit the big things in your life. Emotions are what drive us. We all know this. You have to learn to regulate them to achieve more significant results in your life. Honing your inner game is what will take you to the top. It's not easy. It's not easy. No way is it easy, but it is worth it. So let me quickly discuss 5 reasons why developing your inner game is essential. It really is. And these are pretty straightforward examples, but they're key. They're key to understand and they're key to remember. The first reason why you need to develop your inner game, and I've already touched on it a little bit, is more energy. When you accept responsibility for your emotions, you gain the power and energy to create the life you want. If you take 100% responsibility, you have a better chance of creating the life you want. Simple facts. Life will not always work in your favor, but you have the ability to deal with what gets thrown at you. If you have higher levels of energy, if you develop your inner game, if you do what Joe Dispenza is talking about and bring those elevated emotions up from inside you, you will have higher energy. And higher energy is one of the major keys to success. One of the benefits about having more energy and regulating your emotions is it leads to more confidence. That's the second point I want to discuss with you. When you believe in yourself, it helps you make decisions that create positive results. It's a pretty straightforward equation, that, but when you believe in yourself, it helps you make decisions that create positive results. When you don't regulate your emotions, you often act out of fear and scarcity. Now, I know that from my own life. I know that from being broke and partying and focusing on drinking and not facing the responsibilities in my life and not regulating my emotions properly, using alcohol and parties to regulate my emotions, that then I acted out of fear and scarcity when trying to make more important decisions in my life. So I really understand that. And when you don't regulate your emotions, you don't have the same level of confidence. Yes, you might be able to a little bit of a bravado with a little bit of alcohol and act confident, but deep down you're not confident. Confidence creates success. When you start creating more confidence in your life, it will often lead to increases with your net worth. Ultimately, your self-worth often reflects your net worth. And again, going back to myself as an example, in my life, when I started to face the more difficult emotions in my life and regulate them, all of a sudden I was able to perform at higher levels within my sales and corporate environments, which led to me being able to get promotions because I was able to actually be more confident in difficult situations, and I was able to step forward and act in a more rational and positive manner because I was regulating my emotions. The other benefit to developing your inner game is less stress. When you resist your emotions, you create stress. Again, pretty straightforward statement that is ultimately a truth. You invite overwhelm, frustration, and procrastination into your life when you ignore your inner game work. I could use myself as an example again here quite easily, but I'm sure if you're being brutally honest with yourself and you're listening to this right now, you know that when you don't regulate your emotions, when you don't focus on creating higher energy in your life, you do invite overwhelm, frustration, and procrastination into your days. You've felt overwhelm and procrastination in your life, and it usually leads back to some type of emotional issue. Now, is it easy to get over that? No, you just can't click your fingers. But letting go of negative emotions consciously and subconsciously will lessen stress in your life. So developing your inner game so far has given us more energy, more confidence, and reduced stress. So you're starting to see why having great energy and focusing on this is a first principle when it comes to self-performance. I hope you are, because I really do feel like this is the foundation and the building block to improving your self-performance. Getting this deep very quickly before getting into more of your standard productivity and performance techniques. The fourth area that I want to talk about of why developing your inner game is important is better relationships. When you have a deep relationship with yourself, you find it easier to have deep relationships with others. I'll repeat that. When you have a deep relationship with yourself, you find it easier to have deep relationships with others. Life is all about connection. The better you connect, the further you will get in life. I remember a study was done a number of years ago. I remember watching a TED talk about it, and it was all about tracking a number of people throughout their lives. And the people that had developed deeper relationships with people around them in their lives, they actually lived longer. So the secret to having a healthier and longer life ultimately comes back to having better relationships in your life. And the way to create better relationships in your life is to create a better connection with your inner emotions. If you add all those points up, they quite nicely flow into the final point that I want to discuss with you in this first episode of the Self-Performance Strategies podcast. And that fifth point is better results. When you get the other points on this podcast right, you will consistently improve your results. Your results are based on the actions you take. Those actions are based on the decisions you make. Your decisions and actions will be better if your inner game is on point. You know, at some point in your life, you have made a fantastic decision because you've been mentally and emotionally on point in the game. You've made a decision. It's worked out really well because you were aligned. You also know that you've probably made a bunch of awful decisions in your life because you were emotionally unaligned. You were making a decision based out of fear or scarcity or some negative emotion that was clouding your judgment. Now, the positive decision leads to better results. The negative decision often leads to bad results. So ultimately, you will get better results in your life if you focus on developing your inner game, if you focus on creating energy, positive energy from within inside you. Now, how do we do that? Our thoughts are our inner game. If you can learn to master your thoughts and your emotions, you can master your life. By regulating your emotions, you will attract more positivity into your life. It does take time, it does take deep work, and it is constant effort, but the upside is well worth it. It is ultimately a great journey to go on. And a couple of tips that I can give you to wrap up this episode of how I developed my inner game. And they're pretty straightforward. It's daily journaling, it's meditating, it's going for walks, it's exercising, it's eating healthily, and it's being brutally honest with yourself quite often. In your journal, being brutally honest with yourself. And if you make a mistake, taking 100% responsibility, not hiding behind excuses. And over time, the more you meditate, the more you journal, the more you're honest about the reality that you live in, the more that you're honest with yourself, the better you will get at regulating your emotions. Now, as I've said that, there are many, many levels to it. Many levels. This is a game you can play for the rest of your life. Working on and developing your inner game is not a once and done activity. So I wish you all the best. I hope that you're able to take the 5 points from this podcast, the ideas I've shared in this podcast, and you can actually start to see how regulating your emotions and creating positive energy from inside yourself is one of the key cornerstones, is one of the foundations to improving your self-performance, to getting yourself to the next level. If you can start here, it will put you ahead of a lot of other people, because I generally feel, and this is again an example from my own life, is that this is something that a lot of people put off because they don't want to deal with this. They don't want to deal with the darker emotions. They don't want to deal with the stress that this can cause by actually being brutally honest with yourself. But all progress in life starts with telling the truth. So go develop your inner game, go and 10x your energy, and start improving your self-performance. Thank you very much for joining me in the first episode of the Self-Performance Strategies podcast. If you want to get in contact with me, you can hit me up on all my socials at Steve Timoney. That's at STEVE Timoney, TIMONEY. On their Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, I have the same at. Also, you can hit me up on my website at stephentimoney.com, and that's Stephen spelled the old-fashioned way, the European way, STEPHENTIMONEY.com. That is my website. If you have any questions at all, if you want to give me feedback about the podcast, please let me know, and we will see you in the next episode of the Self-Performance Strategies podcast. Thank you very much. I've been Stephen. Now go out and improve your energy. I know you can do it. Make it a good one.